Hi everyone, hope you haven't missed us too much. Today, we're talking to a really interesting person who we believe is one of the most organized people in the world. Like, seriously, if you think you're organized, make sure to listen to this episode and your mind will be completely blown. Our wonderful guest, Joey, is an avid journaler who loves to reflect upon his life and see how he can improve it. He has had a very interesting career journey as he studied psychology at university, then became a data engineer, and then finally retired to start his own business and even write a book. If you want to know more about his life and get some tips about journaling as well as how to be more organized, make sure to check out the rest of this episode. Without further ado, here it is. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Curious Coconut. Today we are joined by Joey and my wonderful co-host Thong. I met Joey through an online public speaking competition that we did together. And one of the first things that stood out to me about Joey is that he is a very well-organized person. And everything in his life is super structured. When I first heard about this, I was super fascinated. So yeah, Joey, do you want to talk about how you structure your life? What are the reasons behind it, and when did you kind of start doing it?
Thanks for having me on, Aadi and Thong. Look, first of all, just because how I structure my life is a huge area, right? And
Yeah.
let's maybe start with what particular aspects stuck out to you, Aadi, when we first started chatting, stuck out to you and made you think like, hey, this Joey guy is, I think you said organized to an extreme level. I like it.
Yeah.
Extremely organized. Tell me more about that.
So, okay, this was regarding our most recent conversation.
Uh-huh.
Um, but you said you do like a daily review where
Mm.
you sort of review what you did in the day, and then
Yeah.
you compile the daily reviews into a weekly review.
Yeah.
And then you do the weekly reviews into monthly, monthly into like quarterly, and quarterly into like a yearly review.
Yeah. Very
And
good.
you also mentioned you have 5 different categories that you review as well, or like 4 or 5, I can't remember exactly. Um,
Yeah.
and just that kind of self-reflection. Um, I think I do a little bit of self-reflection,
Mm.
but it's certainly not that organized. But the
Yeah.
fact that you do all of those things on a regular basis, yeah, I feel like just that in itself is very well organization.
Okay, sure thing. So, talk about the reflection practice a little bit. Would that be useful?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sure thing. So, the other question was like, when did it start? You asked a few questions, right? When did it start? Um,
Yeah. So I guess let's focus on the how first. Like, what do you
the
do?
how. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sure thing. So every day I do some morning journaling and some evening journaling. So, in the mornings, just very high level, there's a gratitude practice and there's a stream of consciousness. I just like start writing a stream of consciousness on a certain prompt, or it might be completely unprompted. I'll just wake up and just write over what's on my mind. Uh,
Okay. For anyone who doesn't know, what's a stream of consciousness? Do you want to quickly explain that?
yeah, very good. Yeah, thanks. So stream of consciousness basically just means whatever is on your mind. So you just sit down at the blank page and you just start writing. It could be just like, I've got nothing to write about, or I'm feeling anxious about X. It's just just verbalize, just put whatever is going on through your head on the page. Because
Mm-hmm.
generally, there's always some voice going on in our heads, even when we're trying to not think about anything. It's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, I'm thinking about something. Am I doing it right? So yeah, that's stream of consciousness. And I do it for about 5 minutes.
Okay. So that's the in the morning journaling.
That's right, yeah. Then in the evening, I just write about the day,
Mm-hmm.
just like from beginning to end. And that helps me just like process everything that went on. And in a sense, just basically just say like, okay, that's the end of the day. Whatever happened in the day, whether there was wins or losses, that part of the day is done. And we move on to tomorrow. And then I think about what went well, what could be done better, and what can I do smarter tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like three specific sections there. And
Yeah.
then I start writing out the 3 most important tasks for the next day.
Okay.
And then the cycle repeats.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then for the weekly, that's I'll give a high level. I've actually got that written up on my website, and I can put a link in to for your listeners if they want more detail on that. So it's basically made up of a values section. So that's where I take a look at my values and where I've converged or diverged from them. Like for instance, mastery is one of my values, or now call it expansion. So basically my ability to just like expand beyond my comfort zone. And so an example of converging on those values might be doing something I'm uncomfortable with. Or an example of diverging from those values is like, I had an opportunity to step outside my comfort zone, but I didn't take it. Why didn't I take it? And so looking at that for I've got 5 values now. Sorry, I changed them recently. But so there's expansion, freedom, camaraderie, and kindness. I think there's just 4. Yeah. Movement was the other one that I missed out on. So that's the idea of getting away from my desk and doing stuff. Because if I didn't have that, I think I'd probably just like stay at my desk and just like hack away in front of my monitor for most of my life and then sleep, which isn't a great way to live. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's about tracking things like getting personal best on my exercises, getting out and seeing the sun setting, sometimes the sun rising if I'm disciplined enough. And yeah, good stuff like that. That happens only when you get outside or away from your
Mm-hmm.
desk.
So that's your weekly, your reflection. Then,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's just one section of the weekly. I told you it was going to be more.
oh,
So
okay.
so uh, so there's the values. There's the considerations. So these are things that I'm not sure are like I don't know whether they're good or bad yet. So it could just be like, I wonder if I'm spending enough doing outreach to people, or I wonder if I'm spending enough time doing content creation, or the things I'm just pondering and I'm not really sure what the answer is yet.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a section called concerns, which are things that I'm apprehensive about. Uh, for instance, recently there was I had to see a glaucoma specialist, and I was feeling
Mm-hmm.
a bit apprehensive about that because I was like going, oh, like, what's that going to mean? What's it going to mean in terms of the health of my eyesight, and what's it going to mean in terms of expenses and all these things? And it's a process of breaking down any fears or apprehensions that you have into knowns and unknowns and going from there.
Yeah.
An excellent book called Cognitive Dominance taught me that by Charles McLaughlin. Uh, and where was I? Concerns, then
Yeah.
insights. So given all these things, given all these data points from the week, what insights can I draw from them? And then there's a section called takeaways, which is split up into any light tasks that I can do. So things that will probably take me 2 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
A schedule, which are tasks that need to get moved into my to-do list and prioritized accordingly.
Yeah.
File, which is stuff that is useful but not actionable. So that gets moved into my second brain. And
Yeah.
then experiments, which are things that I want to try out for the next week. So that's that's the weekly.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
then
yeah,
I
before you go on, I just want to
yeah,
like kind of get an idea of this. So, how
go.
long does it take you to do the weekly one? Because I feel like that would be a bit of a lengthy process.
Yeah, it is. It is. So it probably it takes me between 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
It depends on how much has gone on during the week.
Okay.
And so if there's a lot that has gone on and there's a lot of just stuff up here that needs to get sorted out and processed,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll it will generally take a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sorry, not a little bit. Sometimes it might take twice as long. It might take about 4 hours instead of 2.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, so it's about 2 to 4.
Okay. Yeah. Continue with the monthly then.
Fortunately, from here, it's not as involved a process because it is a little bit of the same. So
Mm-hmm.
same categories,
Yeah.
values, insights, considerations, concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there is another component to it called story, which is broken down into wins, insights, and pivots. And sorry, I mentioned an insights branch before. In monthly, quarterly, and annual, they get folded into this story category.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically like looking at the month and thinking about, okay, what were my wins? So it's kind of like what went well, like similar to what I was talking about in my daily journal.
Mm-hmm.
Then the insights, similar to what I do every week, except on a monthly level now. And
Mm-hmm.
then pivots are things that I'm going to be doing differently, which is similar to experiments at the weekly level. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of like parallels and repetition in
Mm-hmm.
between things. And so a similar process. It's more for process of aggregation now, and in some ways it's a bit easier to do those monthlies because I've already done a lot of the hard work at the weekly level. The
Mm.
weekly level is probably where a lot of the intense thinking gets done, hence
Yeah.
the long time frame. The monthlies can take probably between 3 to 4 hours, but
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing it only once a month, it is kind of negligible in the grand scheme of a month. If it can set you on a good course for the month, it's really it really just doesn't seem to be that big an ask.
Mm-hmm.
Not to me anyway.
Yeah.
And then the quarterly, again, it's an aggregation of the months
Yeah.
and it feeds into the same categories as the months. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
story, considerations, concerns, takeaways. And then annual is the same as well.
And when you said you do your annual ones on your birthday, right? Instead of like
Mm.
your
Say again, sorry?
so you said you do your annual like reflection on your birthday
Yep,
rather than at the end of the year or like at the start of the year.
that's right.
Sorry, I was just wondering how long you've been doing this for, and how did you come up with the structure that you have for your journaling journey, I guess.
I've been doing this reflection practice in some way, shape, or form, probably since like 2007.
Since
Oh,
2007.
Yeah.
Okay.
wow.
So, and just showing my age, that's when I was in my mid-20s. So, probably like a similar point of time as a lot of your listeners, I guess. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So it started out as a monthly review only,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a lot less intense. It was just basically like it was so casual and intense that so casual that I remember doing most of them just on the couch while I was watching the Formula One. So like it was just a matter of just like looking at what went on and what I want to do next
Mm-hmm.
month, basically. And to an extent, that's what I'm still doing, but there's a lot more structure and uh, I'd probably say it's I'm thinking a lot less about the structure because it's all written down and it's all just like almost like making a recipe,
Mm-hmm.
like cooking something from a recipe. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
back then it was probably like part of my mind was on, okay, so how am I going to do this? How am I going to do the review? And the
Yeah.
other half was like on exactly doing the review.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
when
And
it's
what was the reason? Like, why did you start doing that in your mid-20s?
yeah, sure. So I I was initially I had initially been introduced to the pickup artist community. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with it, but the skinny on that is that it. I'm not sure if it exists anymore, but it was at the time it was aimed at men that wanted to get better at dating. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like dating coaches and romantic relationship coaches and stuff. And I so I was very much a late bloomer in terms of my romantic life. And I was really awkward in high school. Hey, I'm probably still really awkward now, but
Yeah.
it's probably even more so in my teens and early 20s. And it fascinated me that there was a structure to get better at this particular aspect of your life because it just seemed like, hey, you're either born handsome with like mad charisma
Mm-hmm.
or and you're able to meet people that you're romantically interested in and it just happens like that, or you're not and you're uh doomed to a life of being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that I think a life of being alone is doom anymore, because I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that being romantically partnered is just like one flavor of life. And if you want to live single or not completely solitary, I think it's good to have friendships and it's good to have people in your life. But
Yeah, for
romantic
sure.
partnerships are not a necessary part of it, and
Mm-hmm.
can nerd out about my philosophy on that later on. But I'll stick to the question as much as I can, which is what. So the thing about learning a lot of these skills is that they're very much lagging indicators. So like if you, one of the things they teach you is to like try to defeat your anxiety around talking to strangers, because often people that you're romantically interested in are going to be
Mm-hmm.
strangers at some point, right? And so
Yeah.
you have to in a sense get over that fear. And so you might, so I might in a week go out and talk to 10 strangers, and then the next week go out and talk to 10 strangers and be like, oh geez, it's so tough. Why isn't it getting any easier? The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, the thing with these skills is that they're very slow. They're very slow to progress. And we also have a negativity bias as humans where like you go and talk to a stranger and they're like, they're not nice to you. And when I say not nice, it doesn't mean like they throw a drink in your face, but like they just like, they're just abrupt and they just go, oh, sorry, I don't really have time to talk. And
Yeah.
they just leave. But in your head, you're just like, oh damn, like no one likes me, and like I'm never gonna find a romantic partner, and like you just catastrophize and do all
Mm.
this stuff. So what's really what's recommended in that space, but I think in any skill acquisition, like whenever you're acquiring a skill that takes a while to get your hands around, is to make notes about what you're doing, what your experience is, and what are you going to do differently, or do you even need to do anything differently? Sometimes it's just a matter of just like doing the same hard thing over and over again, um and just trusting in the process. And now
Mm.
with the journaling, what's great is you can sometimes overcome some of that negativity bias in the moment. So like on the day, you might feel horrible that you talk to two strangers and they both shut you down. But then you look over the month and you go like, wow, on day one, I couldn't even talk to someone. I couldn't even overcome my anxiety to talk to someone. I just kind of looked at them from afar, like creepily, like going, oh, I wish I could talk to them. But
Yeah.
but now I'm actually going out there and talking to like two strangers a day or something. And then at the
Mm.
end of the year, you actually go like, hey, like um I'm going out on dates like with new people every, like at least one person every month, and so on. And so you can see your journey, your progression. And
Yeah. Yeah, like
so
that slow process that because you're able to like journal each of the experiences you had, you're not just focusing on the negative aspects of it, but you're saying
exactly.
that like, oh, the fact that you're even going into going up to strangers and talking to them, that in itself is a success, even though that the
Yeah.
interaction might ha not have been as good as you want it to be.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Mm.
And one of the other great things as well is that ultimately in this space, um, you'll be comparing yourself to others. It's just inevitable. Like that's what we do as humans. We just like we might go like, oh, my friend over here started the same time as me, and he's like so far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just here, and I'm just like having only like one date every week, whereas he's having like 7 dates every week. And it's just
Yeah.
like, well, everyone's got their own journey. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, as long as you're getting better every day, in a sense, you can't really compare your life to someone else's life,
Yeah.
because they might have all sorts of other stuff going on or advantages going on that you don't have, or you just never know. And so the best person to compare to is yourself. Like 30 days ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
so on. So that's my whole philosophy on reflection and improvement. I'm not perfect at it. Like I do find myself comparing myself to other people every now and then, but it does help me get quite nicely grounded.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's inevitable, right? Like you'll
Mm,
always see other people around you who are doing better than you, and you will feel disheartened.
mm.
But as long as you have that sort of, data to look back upon, that like this is where I started from and this is where I come so far, I think that in itself is quite rewarding.
Yeah, so much, so much.
Yeah.
And when exactly do you add structure to your journaling journaling life?
That's a good question. I wouldn't be able to tell you like, oh, at this
Like you can't
time
pinpoint it. Yeah.
yeah, I can't pinpoint it. It all just came together quite organically.
Mhm.
I think I'm just trying to think about when I moved from monthly to weekly reflection.
Yeah.
I think that might have been like around 2010, 2011, maybe. And then, but when I moved into weekly, it wasn't like bang weekly every like without fail. It was kind of like sometimes weekly, sometimes fortnightly, and then but now I basically don't miss a week. Like even if it's like for instance this week I finished my weekly on Wednesday because like the long weekend was quite busy. But yeah, it's just basically it's almost like it's like a ritual that I just use to clear my head. In terms of the daily, I I feel like there was a point in 2017 where I got this app on my phone called Squid, which is like this infinite canvas scribbling app that you can use. And I just really like the idea of just like drawing every day. And I started just just drawing a little bit about like what happens during the day. And I think it probably got I think that's probably where the daily journaling probably started. But even before that, I was just like jotting down notes on my phone on like a little notes app. But it didn't have like that daily structure to it. It was just like whenever things just came to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nowadays, what tools are you using? Because I'm assuming since you're doing all this management and data note
Mm,
down and stuff, what's like your go-to tools that you use for these?
yeah, sure. So there is, sorry, my phone's off at the moment, so I'm just going off memory.
Yeah.
So I use a mind mapping tool called Simple Mind. And by the way, I don't have any affiliations with these apps. But
Okay.
hey, if you're listening out there, app creators, and you'd like to sponsor me for sure, go for it. But yeah, so I use Simple Mind. It's a mind mapping tool on Android that I use mainly to take notes on podcasts or articles that I'm reading or books that I'm reading. So that's and I also use it to just jot down ideas. OneNote is similar as well, but it's more linear. And I just have a note in OneNote that's just basically called dump. And I just write anything that's on my mind, and that flows into my weekly review, and that's where it gets processed. Then I use this app that is no longer under development. It's called Taplog, which is a simple you just basically put down different metrics you'd like to measure, like for example, meditation. So after every meditation session, I just tap this button and it just basically goes, what was the quality of the session? Like, as in like how much were you into it? I can give it a 5-star rating and then write some notes about the things that I might have been thinking about. And so I do that for different things. I use it to log my sleep as well, which has been pretty good. And feel like I'm missing one. Oh yeah, there's a workouts app that I think is just called Workouts, I think, that I used to I don't know. I guess I can make some notes on these and we can put them in the show notes. But
Yeah, sure.
it's a really good app that I got it in 2020 and I'm still using the free version and I should probably get the paid version. But basically the free version gives me everything I need, but like at the same time I won't support people that are making these cool things. But I just use that to track how many sets I'm doing and how many reps per set, and tracking personal bests and stuff like that. So I think that's everything on my phone that I use to track it. And at the end of the week, I just basically do an export on all of those apps. Most of them export to a CSV file, and I chuck it into my I've got a Python script that runs on my machine that kind of brings it all together.
Wow.
And
So you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
Python script for this?
yeah, I do.
Of course you do.
No longer
Yeah.
surprising. Wow, okay. It's those apps, I assume, that kind of got you into figuring out your habits and then making sure that all of the things that you do become a habit eventually. Is that right?
All the things that I do becoming a habit. You see, the thing is, I'm struggling a little bit with not struggling, but I guess one of the things that I've been thinking about is the idea of autopilot versus intentionality. And so when you make something a habit, when you really make something a habit, you're generally putting it on autopilot, and you're
Yeah.
not, so you don't necessarily have to think about it anymore.
Mhm.
So because it's happening habitually in the background.
Yep.
That's pretty much almost the definition of autopilot, right? And so there are certain things that I don't want to happen on autopilot.
Mm.
And so I want to bring a certain level of intentionality to it as well. And there's probably like a little bit of a crossover point as well. It's what like James Clear calls a pre-game ritual. So James Clear is the author of this book called Atomic Habits, but he is an amazing writer. I'm subscribed to his free newsletter. Every week there's like gold. I don't get anything out of saying this. I just think that like more people need to read it. It's just like a 2 to 3 minute email, has absolute gold every week. Basically, the idea is that James Clear has this thing called a pre-game ritual. So whenever you come up to something that you might want to be really present for, you have this ritual that actually reminds you to like bring your best game to it. So like,
Okay.
and it's something that I really should implement, and I'm not sure why I haven't. But like, for instance, with my meditation, I'm in a bit of a patchy spot at the moment where I am showing up generally once or twice a day, but I'm not always completely present to it. A pre-game ritual basically is usually something physical, to get your body into the state that you want. So if I want to be peaceful and present, there might be something that I can do, like, for example, something to get me in my body, like maybe, I don't know, holding a deep squat for maybe a minute or something like that. And so,
Or like listening to calming music before you go
or
into your
listen to calming
meditation.
music.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the pregame ritual is one way you can possibly balance those things out. But generally, habits and mindfulness are like two of the big levers that are getting a lot of oxygen in the self-improvement space at the moment. But I'm not sure if like people actually realize like how much they're kind of in tension with each other. Because like I was saying before, habits mean that you're going to make something on autopilot. Mindfulness means that you're not. Mindfulness means that like the complete opposite. It's like it's not on autopilot, right? So it's one of those interesting tensions between
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back to the structure. Like,
Yeah.
I think I asked you in our earlier conversation as well, but do you ever feel like stressed out or like trapped by all the structures that you've created in your life, or do they offer you relief? Because I feel like there's two different kinds of people.
Yeah. So I think people in terms of getting stressed out, I think people like when people hear about my structure, I feel like they get stressed out more than I
Yeah.
ever get stressed out when
Yeah.
I have my structure. For me, it's like it's a bit like having a weekly meal that you know how to cook, and you've got this recipe down, and you can pretty much cook it in your sleep. Like, it takes work to do it, but
Yeah.
at the end of it, you know you're going to have like this nourishing meal that's going to set you up very well for the week. It's
Yeah,
like
like
batch
it,
cooking in
yeah.
a sense. Yeah.
hmm
And so, and I understand that you're probably not just asking about the weekly, but like I think the weekly is something that a lot of people hear like, oh, 2 to 4 hours, that's so much. But like it's after doing it, I just feel like I just feel really set up for the week. I feel like all this mental clutter up here is like being organized, like the attic up here is like being sorted out.
Yeah.
I know in about a week it'll probably get messy again, but like I know for like at least Monday and Tuesday, I'm gonna have like a killer couple of days.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, maybe not so much. But
hmm
it's something I'm always on the lookout for, like how to streamline the process a bit more. I have yeah, just I know there's like quite a few steps to it and stuff, And like, for instance, one of the things I used to do was read the stream of consciousness that I every day, like everyday stream of consciousness. I used to read that. And I found that it was just like taking too long. As you can imagine, like 5 minutes worth of writing every day, reading that, and sometimes trying to make sense of it. And when it doesn't really necessarily make sense,
Yeah.
it's not meant to make sense. It's probably not, like, sure, I might be sacrificing a little bit of like completeness. Like I'm not leaving every stone unturned, but sometimes you got to do that, right? Like our time is finite, and if you can't like look under every stone. And the thing is, if you try to do that, you're probably going to be like neglecting the really important areas.
Yeah, other aspects of the reflection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Or other aspects of your life as well. Like all of your life doesn't have to be reflection. And so like if I instead made my reflection like 8 hours and like made it more comprehensive, it's just like, well,
Yeah.
what are you doing on Sunday, Joey? I'm just reading about my week. It's like, okay, so you're spending an entire day reading about your week. It's like,
yeah, like that was another question I want to ask, right? Like, do you ever feel that you're wasting your time with all this reflection? Like, if you just remove that, you could maybe have time to do, I guess it's a balance, right? Like,
yeah.
what you're doing versus when you're reflecting.
Yeah, it is something I keep thinking about, like, because sure, I've cut some things out, but can I cut even more stuff out? Like, what if I brought it back to the level of 2007, 2008, where like I could just do this casually in front of the TV? It's not it's something that I find really difficult to have a good answer to, because if I was going to say like, this was what was missing from 2007, 2008, all I can say is that the depth wasn't really there. The depth of reflection and the order of my thoughts, it wasn't there. But that's all I can say. And then the thing is, okay, so you got greater depth in your thoughts and stuff now. So how does that contribute to your life? Like, is it helping you make more sales? Is it helping you grow your business? Is it helping you with your relationships in your life? And I guess the only thing I can say is indirectly, because the bottom line is thinking about what's happened isn't going to directly change anything, right? It's all about taking the actions that you take from there. And so to bring it back to your question, do I ever feel like I'm wasting it? I do sometimes question, like, is this actually like a 90-minute review dressed up in 4 hours worth of clothing? And if so, like, what would that look like? And yeah, I've tried different types of cutting it down, but generally I feel like it just feels like there's something missing. And that could just be purely habitual, right? I've probably been doing this exact format probably for a year or two now. And so there's a year or two worth of habit building that's behind it. So of course, changing anything is going to be uncomfortable. But the bottom line is, Aadi, I just don't really have good metrics to basically say yes or no to that. So all I can tell you is that it feels good, and I don't really know what else I'd want to do. So like, let's say I cut it down to 2 hours, and so I'm saving myself 2 hours on a Sunday. Maybe I might go for an extra 2 hours in my nature walk, or maybe I might schedule some more social interaction. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's completely okay, right? Because to be honest, I don't think a lot of people do self-reflection enough.
Yeah.
Because they just go about their day, just and make decisions based on their feeling. Like, oh, if I feel like eating healthy today, I'll eat healthy. If I feel
Yes.
like going to the gym, I'll go to the gym. So, it's good that you have some sort of structure to keep you accountable, right?
Yeah.
So that you can go do the things that you know that are good for you. Because then you're not just relying on your feelings to make your decisions for you.
That's it. That's it, Aadi. And I guess one direct benefit of the review is that often often it reveals to me how rich the week was, especially for I'm especially thinking about the weekly review. So if I didn't actually do this review, I think I would, like you said, like you're saying, most people just like go about their lives kind of living day to day. I often when I do my weekly review, it's just like, oh geez, I forgot that like I had this I was just out journaling in the park and I had this cool interaction with someone that lives around my neighborhood. Or I was on this I had this great podcast interview, or like all these amazing things that you might not actually think too much about unless you reflect on them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
and all of these things are memorable. They are actually moments that that give your life, uh, they give my life a sense of richness, like a richness to the experience.
Yeah.
But they can be very easily just like washed away, like little flecks of gold in the water, right? Like you need
Yeah.
something to catch them so that you can like almost like it's like panning for gold. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like worst case scenario, you turn 80 and you're like starting to lose, like forgetting your memories. Just have all this like data to look back upon,
Yeah.
and like just a store of your entire life. So you can
that's
read
it.
back and understand,
All the
oh,
CSV
what type of person you
files.
are.
That's it. All the CSV files. That's it. It's and like you don't even have to be 80, right? Like
Yeah.
once again going to show my age. I turned 40 last year, or halfway to 80. And I was thinking about something. I was thinking about something that happened like around in my early 30s.
Hmm.
And just to give you context, one of the things was like I was going, hey, like I'm I'm working for myself at the moment, and I basically have complete control over my time. Like I don't have a boss telling me to be at the office at X time or anything like that. But why do I feel so time crunched now? Whereas back in 2015, 2013, I was I was working 40 hours a week. I
Hmm.
was commuting. I had like a longish commute. It was probably about an hour both ways. So it was about 2 hours every day spent commuting. And I would, I just felt like when I look back on that time, I felt so much more time abundant, even though
Hmm.
I had all these commitments. And so if I didn't have those journals, um, I could just very easily romanticize that time and basically like go, why now, like why is my time management so bad at the moment? Like
Hmm.
why is it so good back then when I had um so many obligations and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got theories around that particular point, but when I actually took a look and read them, it was basically the same story. It was just basically like,
Mm.
why am I so time crunched? Like, why, like, it was just like,
It's never been
it,
easier.
yeah, yeah, it never gets easy. It's like that idea of um time management is a lot like running. Like you never, it never gets easy. You just keep running
Mm.
faster.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we also romanticize our past, right? Like, I
Yes.
think we think that we only tend to remember the positives in the long run. Like I don't know. I think that's me in general. I'll remember like the good times we had as a child. I had as a child in high school, and I'm like, life was so much easier then. Like, I mean, I think as a
Yes.
child it was easier, but still, we had other things that we don't think about that we didn't like about that particular moment. So
That's
yeah,
it. That's it.
Yeah.
Do, uh, are either of you like video gamers?
Not,
not really.
yeah, not so
Not
much.
really.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a video game analogy, but I'll save it. But yeah, it's yeah, the thing about when you're a kid is that life was simpler, but
Hmm.
at the same time, simplicity isn't always a good thing, right? Simplicity, like you can eat like peanut butter on toast,
Hmm.
uh, and it's it will provide you with sustenance and it's simple, but at the same time, you don't want simplicity every day, right?
Yeah.
There is a certain sense of like wanting a little bit more. And even though it might take a bit more effort for me to make like some pasta and like some pasta sauce, That's probably simple as well, but like it's a step up from the peanut butter on toast.
Yeah.
It requires a little bit effort and it's a little bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It provides like a certain sense of richness, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when you're a kid, you just like follow the rules and it's simple. But at the same time, like you just don't have the freedom to really explore life. And so sometimes you want simplicity, sometimes you want to open it up. Like for example, talking about romantic relationships and talking about romantic relationships, like inviting one or more romantic partners into your life is definitely not going to simplify your life.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
It's going to make things more complicated. But at the same time, that like it can bring you joy. It can also bring you sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that I'm learning is that when you as if you really want to experience life, you need to you need to take risks that are going to bring you possibly heartbreak, because what heartbreak suggests is that you loved something enough to feel that sense of loss when it's gone or it's no longer accessible to you. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
I to be honest, I've never really thought of it that way, but
That's
that
really
is
deep.
very like deep. Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying to experience life, I need to get my heart broken.
I think it would be rare to encounter someone that has lived fully, like by whatever their definition of fully is.
Mm.
Sorry, some people's definition of fully would be to just completely play it safe, right? It's just
Yeah.
like I'm just gonna keep my head down, not bother anyone, and just like pick up my paycheck, watch Netflix, and I'm good. And there's nothing wrong with that lifestyle, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
but some people like it's a simple lifestyle, right? But some people might want to experience all of the colors of life. And
Mm.
so when I was thinking about grief and heartache over the past couple of years, it was like if you think of an artist and their artist's palette, like let's say they're painting a picture, the pick up a paycheck and Netflix kind of person probably only has like black and white on their palette. And you can do a lot
Mm.
of things with black and white. You can paint a pretty nice black and white picture, but it's
Mm.
only ever going to be a monochrome picture.
Mm.
Whereas when you experience great highs and like great wins and great losses, each of these things provide you with a different color onto your palette. So like you might experience the joy of like falling in love, or you
Mm-hmm.
might experience the real sorrow of heartbreak. But
Yeah.
those are all different colors that you can use to experience life and
Yeah.
to like for instance, when someone if I've never experienced heartbreak
Mm-hmm.
or loss or grief, and Addie comes to me and says like I'm Joey, like I'm feeling really heartbroken because X thing happened. My ability to relate is a lot less than like I need to the extent that I've experienced heartbreak as well, that will allow me to relate, to gain
Mm.
rapport, and to understand the other person and to build relationships.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like I've gone a little bit all over the place, but I takeaway is completely agree. Like I think you, if you want to like really squeeze everything there is out of life, you have to be willing to take real risks.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean you got to like sink all your savings into cryptocurrency or anything. By the way, not financial advice, just
Gotta put that
Yeah,
purely
out
for
of
there.
education,
course.
entertainment purposes only. And
Yeah.
I don't have any investments in crypto either. Just
Yeah.
putting that out there. Uh, but yeah, like the ability to lean into discomfort and to be okay, like even to embrace. I, I've been thinking about this idea of discomfort credits in my life, which is that I generally don't feel a level of satisfaction in my day or my week unless I've tried to do something hard, something that I've been avoiding because there's some kind of fear or apprehension in it.
Interesting.
And so, and the thing is, it has to be a real risk as well. So there has to be like an opportunity for failure. Otherwise, it's not
real.
it's not a real risk. That's right. So, it's one of those ideas that I've been exploring in that, like, for example, one of the reasons why I tend to not rush to go work out is because I know that I'm either going to do 12 sets or something or get a personal best. And getting a personal best will mean pushing into an area where I haven't been before, which means my body will be saying like, I don't want to do this. So it's going to be uncomfortable. But I know that if I push a little bit into the discomfort, then I'm going to have a great day because I'm going to feel like I've just gone beyond where I was before. And so, yeah, I think discomfort, it's underrated.
Yeah, like again, I feel like I've never really thought of discomfort as something I should look for. Like I know I've heard that phrase, like, you know, you should step out of your comfort zone. But even then, I'm not really thinking like if I do something that I'm uncomfortable doing, like I'm earning points for that. Or like
Yeah.
I'm earning credits for that. So that's a very interesting concept in itself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been talking for a while, and I want to switch up the conversation a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you have started a podcast, you have written your own book,
Yeah.
and you do a bit of life coaching as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about those aspects? And you know, you worked in tech for like 10, 15 years and then switched on to like sort of starting your own things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, just I guess talk about a bit of that.
There's a lot in there. Is there a particular point you'd like me to start on, or anything you'd like
Yeah,
to
so I
focus on?
think maybe start from your tech journey, how that experience was, and then what made you want to transition to like starting your own things.
Yeah, sure thing. So in terms of working in tech, I actually studied psychology at uni, and from there I started working in an organizational psychology company, and so I was working in like the research and development department, and I wasn't really loving it.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because all I was doing was they were rolling out like a psychometric testing platform for people looking for work. So
Yeah.
let's say I was looking for work, I'd go in there and do the test, and it would basically say like, Joey, you'd be best suited to be a fireman. Joey, you'd be best suited to be a teacher, or so on. And so what I was doing as a research assistant was basically like, that there was the program on the screen, and then they gave me a paper specification, and it was just basically like checking like, um, on the paper it says the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dogs. So I go
Yeah.
the quick brown fox. And so it's just like very tedious work. And however, in the process of doing that, I was finding interesting problems with the software.
Hmm.
And the IT manager at the time basically said like, hey, I know your contract is running up with research and development. Would you like to come work with us
Mm-hmm.
for a little while? And of course I said no.
Why?
Because like he basically asked me like, have you considered a career in IT? And I said no. And I was like, because I had no idea like about what IT was.
Yeah.
And like at the time, I wanted to work in psych because that's what I'd studied, right? And so working in IT felt like it didn't feel like a step forward, maybe a step sideways, maybe even a step backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was me being ignorant. I didn't. It's just because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So he basically said he's like one of my most favorite people in the world because he really just like took me under his wing. He basically said to me, okay. He took my no and he just basically said like, okay, well, how about you come work with us for like however long it takes you to line something else up that you want to do.
Yeah.
And once you find something, just give us 1 week's notice and you can be done.
It's
But
like
you're
test
doing
the
great
waters
work.
first.
Yeah, just test the waters. And so that was wonderful. He just basically gave me a free shot at a career in IT.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and ended up working there in IT, in that particular job for about 4 years. And then yeah, just like started working with other companies like Atlassian, and I just accidentally, really accidentally fell into a career in tech. And it's but once I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I worked in tech for about 15 years in various roles, like a little bit was software testing and test management, and then towards the end was more in the machine learning and data science, artificial intelligence type space.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it was the the later part of my tech career was more intentionally put together because yeah, I was just like going, well, my career in testing has been really good to me. However, it isn't something I actually chose for myself. It is
Yeah.
something that I just fell into. And
Mhm.
I could spend the rest of my life just going with like whatever opportunity presents itself to me, like a bit of a nomad, or
Mhm.
I could actually think about where I want to go and really take control of my career. And
Yeah.
that's when I started getting into machine learning and data science and yeah, all that good stuff.
Cool.
Wow.
And then what made you transition from machine learning, data science to what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So I it was a few things. One thing was that I had some investments that were going really well. And so
Mhm.
it's providing me with a really good runway to just basically think about, okay, if I'm able to retire early, uh,
Yep.
what would I want to do with my life exactly?
Mhm.
And so I was thinking, okay, well, my dad is he recently retired, and I was thinking to myself, it'd be nice to spend some time with him as he opens this next chapter of his life, because he was he worked for the same company for about 30 years. So I'd imagine it would be a big transition to go from that to not working anymore. And so
Yeah.
to be able to spend some time with dad and with also my mum as well. And also to think about, like, this was meant to be a 6-month experiment, like to basically go like, okay, if I take 6 months and I do my own thing, am I going to be bored, or am I going to find stuff that I want to do?
Mhm.
Because I've had other people do similar things, like retire or um, basically quit working and figure out what the next thing for them is. And they generally say around 6 months, that's the time when you either start getting bored or you start realizing that this is the thing for you or not. And
Mhm.
so um, this is 18 months down the track. This 6-month experiment has gone like for about 18 months. So
Yeah.
so that's the reason I initially did that.
Yeah.
Initially took that left full-time employment and tried to start my own thing, and wanted to really see whether I could design a product that could make money. Because
Mhm.
previously I had previously like I've always been interested in making products, like making things for people. And
Mhm.
this kind of ties into the reason I started the podcast. Like when I started doing the data science, artificial intelligence studies, I started understanding a little bit more about how social media companies make money.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is by productizing the users. I'm not sure if you've heard of the saying of like, if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. And
Yeah.
so that statement really hit home for me. And I was like going, oh, I see. So like social media are actually making a lot of money off people under the guise of connection. Like we're connecting people and stuff. But really they're not a company about connection, they're a company about advertising. And so I wanted to basically help people find alternatives to social media, because I knew at the time for myself, it was a nice little default to do. Like whenever you like bored, you just like open up, you just take a look on Facebook and see like what's happening in the feed, or you see like what notifications you got. And it gives you like those quick dopamine hits, that novelty.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, so I'd given myself an alternative by whenever I had the urge to do that, by whipping out my phone, and I had a integrated stylus on my phone, I'd just like draw. And that was just like a really good stopgap to to just like mindlessly going on social media.
Wait, so that's really interesting. So
Yeah,
instead of going on, let's say, Instagram or Facebook,
yeah,
every time you had the urge to do that, you
yeah.
would, let's say, go to your notes app and just start drawing or doodling something.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Wow,
Um,
that's cool.
because I think an interesting thing I neglected to say about myself is that I just love drawing. I've been drawing heaps since I was young, and
Hmm.
I just love doing it, and it just provides me with like just a lot of joy and satisfaction and stuff. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I wanted to give other people a similar alternative, and
Hmm.
so I started a coloring book on the theme was the internal life of factory farmed animals. And
Yeah.
so at the time I just turned vegan as well. And so I wanted to help people, I guess, feel more sympathy for animals.
Hmm.
Like the thing that you call ham, the thing you call pork, or the thing you call bacon was actually this living thing that we're finding now that probably has like a as deep an internal world as like a house pet, like a cat or a dog,
Hmm.
possibly even more so. And so I wanted to both, one, raise awareness of that, and two, the other thing was to give people an escape through this coloring book.
Yeah.
But there was various friction in getting it out there and stuff, and I got a bit disheartened
Hmm.
and shelved that project. And I just thought to myself, okay, so let's take a step back and think about exactly what I'm trying to achieve here.
Hmm.
I want people to have an alternative social media platforms, but why? Why is that? And the why is because a lot of people are getting used by these platforms, and they are losing a lot of their ability to focus, because the novelty barrage that they're getting is really fracturing their attention. So what if, instead of competing with social media companies, I um I kind of align with what's there and create a podcast that helps like tells people everything that I know about focus and also unfocus,
Hmm.
and they can possibly use that to like however they want to.
Yeah.
And yes, it is ironic that I would at first rail against social media, then use it to help me push my message.
Yeah.
But I think there's that famous line in Batman. I think Two-Face says it. He goes, um, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm a villain.
I think you can't really like battle social media. I think the
No.
best thing you can do is educate people
Mhm.
about what it's doing and just let them decide what they want to do, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's where the first season of the Fulcrum podcast came from. And so I decided I didn't want to necessarily have like an open-ended type thing where just like I commit to like every week or every month I'm putting out an episode for an indefinite period of time.
Yeah.
I wanted to do like a seasonal type thing because I'd seen it being done pretty well by like Seth Godin, for example. He puts out like a season's worth of content, and they're not necessarily linked by a theme, but he just goes like on this season of Akimbo and such and such. And
Yeah.
I like that. I like that discrete finiteness of it. And so yeah, that was really fun to do. And I had been meaning to put out a second season on, sorry, so let me back up. Season 1 was all about focus versus unfocus. So it's all about finding the balance between things. Because often especially in the self-improvement landscape, there are kind of views that tend to be opposite to each other. Like if you've been spending long enough in it. So for example, people will tell you need to focus and you need to focus hard. But then some other people will tell you, like, if you focus too hard, then like you might end up just focusing on the wrong thing. You need time to actually step back and unfocus, right? And really get context and then focus on something. So there's like an alternation, yin and yang dynamic between these two poles. And so season 1 was all about focus and unfocus. So how I've used focus in my life and how I've used unfocus in my life as well. And yeah, how I use those two sides. Season 2 was meant to be about the tension between habits and mindfulness. So like what we were alluding to earlier in the conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, trying to resolve that. But yeah, it didn't end up getting prioritized just because when it came to starting my business, I was very much just like floundering and just like going, okay, what do I do? Like flailing a bit. To an extent, I still am, like it just never stops. There's always more to learn. But yeah, it's definitely on the backlog, but it's dropped significantly. It's kind of gone from like priority 8 to like then priority 27. Now it's probably like maybe in the hundreds. So
Yeah.
I think we should be closing soon. So do you have any advice for people that genuinely struggle with time efficiency and accomplishing their goals because of it?
There's a lot of different problems in that. Like I guess if you can think of, I can give general advice, or if you, Aadi, or a specific, like some nameless friend that you'd like to volunteer might like have like a specific problem that they're working with. I could probably speak to that. Which would be better?
You could do both. You could give some general advice.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I could share a problem and then you can
Okay.
Let's do that.
Well done, Aadi. Well done. Okay. So I think generally people can make a lot of headway in terms of managing their time. And also, you see, time management seems to be like a really, what do you call it? Like it's really prominent, right? People say productivity and time management. The bottom line is not all hours are created equal. Like for me, my hours in the morning are much more, I've got much more drive than I do in the afternoon. So I like to think about what I'm going to tackle when, rather than like how many hours I got in the day. So I'd probably say the best general advice is to think about how what your daily rhythms are like, and to structure your work accordingly. So the way I structure my work is that I try to get a lot of my hard things done in the morning when my drive is really high. And then in the afternoon, it tends to be things that are a lot, they tend to be a lot more mundane and routine, and things that I don't necessarily need a lot of drive or energy for. They're not that uncomfortable. They're just like just go through the motions and get some stuff done. So that's probably the best general advice. Think about where like your rhythms and structure your work accordingly.
Okay. I guess one problem, or
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a problem, but this is something that I want to work on, right?
Mm,
Is I did a fair bit of meditation like during COVID,
yeah.
just because I wanted to, focus on myself and like try to improve myself. And I've been trying to get back into it lately, but I usually like to do it at night before I go to sleep. But I don't know,
Mm,
I might do it for like once or twice a week and then it would just fall off. So what
yeah.
can I do to get back into it?
Mm. Yeah, there's a few different things. So how long are you trying to meditate for?
I don't I don't like to time myself. I just kind
Yeah.
of do it
Yeah.
to see. I think the longest I've probably done is 20, 25 minutes, but usually at least I think
That's a long
5 to 10 minutes is a good session.
Yep. Yep. I'd probably even say that while you're struggling, like while it's a challenge for you to create this habit, I probably wouldn't even aim for 5 minutes. What if you could just aim to is this a seated meditation? Like you sit down and you close your eyes
Yeah.
type deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if you just basically set yourself a bare minimum of sitting down, close your eyes, take one mindful breath,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. That's done. So it's about creating a placeholder in your life where you sit down and you meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll find that once you commit to doing just this, just sitting down, closing your eyes, it doesn't have to be at a particular spot. It's just you just sit down and close your eyes before you go to bed. Once you have that very small habit in place, you can then start expanding it into a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it three tips. So one thing is to just make it really small.
Yeah.
The other thing is try and enlist someone that is also trying to build a meditation habit as well. And you can be like accountability buddies. So
Mm-hmm.
um maybe at the end of the week, you might check in with let's say Tong's trying to build it as well. You check in with each other and you say and you basically say like, oh, like how did you do? Like, and you might say like, oh, I managed to get 3 done. And Tong might
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I managed to get 4 done. It's like, okay, like what do you reckon we can do differently to get to 7? And you can compare notes. And there's like that little social pressure and accountability that can motivate you to actually do the thing because you don't want to basically show up and say like, oh, I didn't do any, I got 0 done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then the third one would be to really think about why you want to have this meditation habit so that because like the thing with meditation is that it's difficult to see the results immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's generally a lagging indicator. I know for myself, if I neglect my mindfulness practice, I generally only see the results maybe 2 weeks down the track. Because
Mm.
like if you got quite a tight practice before that, it actually buffers you against like the volatility of life. So
Yeah.
it's good like that. So in the absence of that immediate negative feedback, it's tough. It can be sometimes tough to keep these habits
Mm.
up.
Yeah.
And so when you think about your why you're doing it, that can sometimes bring the negative consequences forward. What do I mean by that? So one of my reasons for meditating is so that I can have better emotional regulation while I'm having difficult conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so on days where I'm finding it difficult to meditate, if I can um, think about, okay, well, if you don't meditate today, or if you miss today's session, then think about that last time you really flew off the handle when you were talking to someone. Do you want
Mm-hmm.
that to happen again? And usually the answer is no.
Yeah.
And then the response to that is, well, then get down and start meditating. So
Mm.
um, if you can find that strong why,
Yeah.
um, and often your why will be the strongest. So like, don't take someone else's. Just like think about like what's the reason you're doing that. And sometimes you can uncover the deep reason by using the 5 whys technique.
Mhm.
And I know we're running short of time, so I'll let the listeners look that up if they want to. But
Yeah.
that can be a really good self-analysis tool.
Okay. Okay. And what is something that fascinates you? Like this is a question that we like to ask just in
Yeah.
general. But what is something that fascinates you about the future? This could be tech related or anything else.
Ooh, fascinates me about the future. That's a really good question. Um, I think you're asking the wrong person.
What?
No, because I tend to like think about all the things that I'm scared about the future. But like it I think one of the really interesting things, because I love journaling and like the mental riches it can bring. But
Mm-hmm.
I also understand that for a lot of people it's high friction because for whatever reason they just have a bunch of competing priorities
Yeah.
that stop them from doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
these smart journaling apps that are coming along, they seem to really lower the friction for people to journal.
Yep.
Uh, I'm not saying that they should replace the ability to have your own practice, but I wonder if they might be a bit of a gateway, like a bit of a gateway practice
Mm.
for people to that just like kicks people over the line to
Mm-hmm.
basically saying like, oh, okay, well, these apps are okay, but like they are kind of um restrictive in that I know that my data is being sent to the cloud, so I don't want to tell it my innermost hopes and fears.
Deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah, deepest,
Yeah.
darkest secrets. Um, so that Mark Zuckerberg can make more money off me. So it's so they might be going, oh, so I wonder what alternatives are out there. And they might come across things like maybe they might want to do paper journaling, but they might do digital journaling. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a digital journaler. I don't really do much paper stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
the so yeah, it might get them more curious to get into that and to live a life of greater reflection. That's pretty exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. Also, we at the Curious Coconut, we love reading and just love learning more about the world.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Atomic Habits earlier in the
Yep.
podcast. You also have mentioned Cognitive Dominance, was it?
That's right. Cognitive dominance. Yeah.
Um, do you have any other books that you could recommend to our listeners?
I got like a lot of books I could recommend. Um, I'm just trying to think about like so
Do you have a personal favorite by any chance, or top three?
sure thing. So there was a book called Awe by Darker Keltner,
Okay.
AWE. And so it's a really interesting book about, and he's a fascinating guy, Dr. Keltner, but
Mm,
uh it's just about how to find like that childlike sense of wonder that we often lose as adults.
okay.
Mm.
But this sense of awe can really make for a satisfying life. And so and it ties into a lot of my work as well. Like when you see some of the um things that have happened in your week or your month that you might have dismissed as simple, but then like they really bring a smile to your face and they really think like, oh yeah, I live a really cool life. Um, it's yeah, it's really wonderful. Um, I'm currently reading the autobiography of Bryan Cranston at the moment. He's a guy that played Walter White in Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a interesting autobiography. It's narrated by him. Uh, it does seem a little bit self-promotional sometimes, but hey, like he is a pretty impressive guy as well. So like maybe it's justified.
Yeah.
And I remember a book that really changed the way I think about things is Thinking Fast and Slow by
Mhm.
Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Daniel Kahneman unfortunately passed away a couple of weeks ago, I believe. But massive book, really, really thick. So uh, expect to digest it over the course of 6 months, I think. It's
Oh.
not a quick and easy read.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of notes to take in there.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, like I could just keep going on about books, but
I
is
think
it
it might be perhaps we can have another episode where because we
okay,
didn't get a
wonderful.
chance to talk to you about your book either, which is From Dilemma to Decision.
Yeah,
So I think we could maybe have another episode where we discuss
wonderful.
books in the whole episode. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. Lastly, do you want to share anything with our audience? This could be a plug to something or any way they can contact you if they want to.
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess a plug and a way of contacting me is I've got a short email course on how to uh, get started with journaling, and it's just like 5 short emails. And if you've ever been curious about how to journal, yeah, it can give you a nice quick start, and it also introduces some of the concepts of decision making that I talk about in my book as well. So it's a little bit of a taster for my book, and so yeah, all you need is just your email address, and I guess the only other thing is just like don't underestimate the power of just like writing things down. It just takes a load off your brain, and it frees you up to do more interesting things than remember your shopping list or and anything else. So write things down. Your life will change.
So with the email course, where can they
Yep.
find it?
Can we give them a link in the show notes?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
sure.
okay, cool.
Okay, all right. We'll do that. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And thank you, Joey, for coming on the podcast. It was really lovely talking to you. And if you enjoyed the podcast, just like and comment any interesting things you found. And we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.